Welcome to the Priority Zero podcast. Stories of service.
Welcome to the Priority Zero podcast. My name's Oresti, and today with us we have Ross Lewis. Now, Ross was in the Australian Army. He's also an ex-firefighter, and he's also involved with Disaster Relief Australia. Ross, welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Oresti. Cheers.
So, Ross, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, mate, how long's a piece of string, Well, just in a nutshell, I left school, didn't complete, last year of school, joined the army, in the regular army for a few years, and then stayed in the Army Reserve because I got a job as a career firefighter.
Beautiful.
I was in the army for all up total 34 years, and then as a career firefighter 29 years.
So a lot of experience in both, and we'll talk about a little bit more of those in depth very shortly. Can we talk about the beginning? What kind of inspired you to join the army? Why did you pick that career path?
Oh, look, there was no specific, no isolated sort of inspiration for joining the army. As it turned out, I was fourth generation Australian Army, and my son, in fact, is 15th generation. But there was never any sort of family pressure or this is what you should do, son, and all this sort of stuff. It was my father had passed away when I was 13, and dad had passed away. Mum decided she'd live her own life and would go away for days, weeks, and even months at a time, overseas, in a state, whatever, on holidays. And my last 3 years of school, being 13 and a bit, and then 14, 15, and 16, I was, I suppose you'd almost say, I wasn't homeless because I was living in the family home, but I was doing that on my own because my mother was never there. Grew up with a bit of family violence. My mother was the user of violence, not my father. And when Dad was gone, I didn't want to be at home. Not that, and I told Mum I wanted to leave school. So she, if you want to leave school, you got to get a job. So I did join the army.
So how old were you when you joined the army?
17.
17, all right. And was that with parents' permission back then?
Yeah,
so
it had to be. And I don't think my mum could sign the papers quick enough, It was, and she said, when I said, look, Mum, I want to join the army. And said, you thought about it? And I said, yeah, here's the papers. And within like 30 seconds or whatever it was, I don't know how long it was, but it was very bloody quickly. Yeah, the old guy said, where do I sign? And fuck it. Thanks, Mum. So then I joined the army.
Beautiful. And what did you join as?
Well, I wasn't too sure, but I'm certainly not a lazy bastard. But I thought, well, pardon me, my logic was why bloody walk everywhere or march everywhere? So I joined the Armoured Corps.
Very cool.
And and started in the Cav unit. At that stage was at Puckapunyal before First Armoured moved to Darwin. and then the different Cav units were spread out amongst the northern states.
Beautiful. Can you tell me a little bit about your first experiences, going to Kapuka and, about army life in general?
Yeah, mate. Start talking about Kapuka, mate. I might have to go back to the Psychs and have fucking, what do they call it? Regressed memories. Look, it was pretty raw back in the very early 80s. It was just, not long before Christmas 81, and then had the Christmas break, and which I ended up spending with relatives in bloody Sydney, not back in Melbourne, because Mum was somewhere overseas. I would have stayed up in Queensland or something, but I can't remember. But yeah, it was pretty raw. There was certainly no, these days, like a recruit can produce a card and say, hang on, mate, you're not being nice to me, you're not being politically correct towards me. And yeah, it was very, very harsh. And there was a lot of, I suppose, there was a lot of cronyism. Yeah, and there was certainly treatment was dished out rather frequently. But look, I think it was is the times, and I'm not shrugging it off to say saying it was okay, but everyone did it, and you just copped it and you just played the game. And I learned pretty quick to play the game. And it was a bit of survival. And I don't regret any of those things, because all my experiences have made me who I am today. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Perfect. And so after I think it's 3 months at Kapooka, can you tell me about the feeling, what it was like marching out?
I wouldn't say euphoric, because I probably, I was still very young and naive young fella, So, look, I had a lot of street smarts, but not a lot of world smarts, because of my virtually having to bring myself up. For the last 3 years I was at school, because once Dad died, Mum was never home. So, I did the street smarts, but I didn't have the world smarts. I was still pretty naive. And look, it was a great feeling, a really sense of achievement, because I was, I wasn't yet 18, but I was marching out with men, and you can, like, for the first time in my life, I had an elder, look at me, even though in the old army they say, oh, you're only a piece of shit because you're a coot and all this sort of rubbish, but I had a sense of purpose and like a sense of identity. Like, hey, I'm a man, even though legally I wasn't, but I'm a man, because I can do this. There's people who older than me can't do this. So look, no, it was a sense of achievement, certainly.
And going in, you said from there you'd moved to Puckapunya to do your actual Armoured Corps training. Yeah, and that was. I thought, oh, this is going to be crazy, because you'd heard all the stories. What happens at, what happens at Kapooka stays at Kapooka, and that's not the real world. And I was still a little bit worried, thinking, oh shit, what are they going to think of me? Like most people do when they're young. And I thought it'd be a little bit easier, because I was halfway to home, almost home. So it was a lot more relaxed in the sense it wasn't as harsh, but you still had to bloody perform. You still had to do what was right, and you certainly didn't want to be a Juliet Charlie, that's for sure. I'm pretty sure you're probably familiar with that terminology. Yeah, so that was one of the first things that you get taught. Don't be a Juliet Charlie. That some older person will take you under their wing, so to speak. And look, it was a great experience. Got to wear chrome, so I didn't have to worry about polishing brass. Back then, got to wear berets on parade. So wore berets all the time. Didn't have to wear the friggin' slouch hats and keep them flat and all this sort of stuff, and have your grade 1, grade 2 and bush hat. No, mate, it was just gold. And of course we wore bloody overalls, like the big jumpsuit type things. It was great. It was so much better. And this was back in SLR days, wasn't it? Before the
certainly was. And I'll tell you what, mate, they're a great weapon. And of course all the IAs and all that were different. All your immediate actions were all different, because you had the gas nozzle at the end of it, and you'd put it, to clear it, you put on 0 and away you go. It was all different, but no, they were a great weapon. They put a big hole in a big tree, mate. Yeah, I can see a photo on the background. Looks like that's a Steyr, the one in the background there. Is that right? Yeah, that's blurry, I was that was a course I did when I was in the chocks, much later in life, and that was a 4-week module, part of I did the officers course as a choco. And while you're doing the course, you're still paid, and you're still paid like your rank and like whatever rank you were or are, but you don't get referred to that as you're a staff cadet.
Yep,
but you still get paid, and you your pay grade's still the same. But it was, that photo was that. And, and look, being at various stages, being DS, I think they call it something different now, directive staff, but on courses and, they were good fun. Lots of good times. I never saw, went overseas a couple of times, but never saw action as such. Never saw any combat, which to be honest, I'm thankful for. Not so much putting myself in harm's way. It's more so seeing what you see. And then, I've lost mates overseas who I've worked with at some stage, or mates of mates have been killed in action and so forth. So, I'm glad I never did. The two times I did go overseas was actually with Psych Corps, because later in my career I had some injuries and they got to medically discharge me, and that was. And look, I know it's only the chocks, but I'd almost had 30 years up, and I said, look, no, just for the sake, so I can say to myself, like, hey, look, I've done 30 years at something. So I actually had to resign my commission, because the only thing left was going from a combat unit to an admin or a pogue unit, and they said, oh, look, what about the Psych Corps? And I thought, oh yeah, but I had to resign because my commission, if I had have gone across to admin or something like that, I would have kept. I would have kept my rank, but the only officers in the Psych Corps are psychologists.
That's right, yeah.
But I thought that was a bit more interesting. Like, to me, it's not about the rank, it's about the job. So after a couple of courses, I had to do a brand new IET, which was held up at Latchford Barracks, North and South Bandiana. And that was a full time. That was like 6 weeks, because with a Psych Corps, they don't have courses for ARA or A-Res. It's just all one course. And that's your first IET, and then when you do the second, and you get your rank back, whatever rank you were. And then I did a promotion first. Ended up leaving as a WO too. But look, I went twice overseas as with a Psych Corps. You get flown over to the Middle East and jump on one time was jump on a naval ship on the way back, and did all the RTAPs and all the psych screens for all the people returning, which is RTAPs, which is Return to Australia psychology screening. And then after a minimum of 3 months, once a Defence Force member's back from deployment, and it doesn't matter what service, because a lot of most of the psychs and psych examiners are Army. They're not Navy or Air Force. Those services do have them, but the Army have a great number of those, and we generally get fed out or spooned out to other services, and that's an experience. So 3 months you do a POTS, which is a post-operation psychology screening, and that's a minimum of 3 months, because they reckon that if it's when people first come home, it's great, it's all relaxed, great, I'm glad to be home. But as time goes on, you kind of think, after 2 months, you're still shoveling your food down. You can still be hearing noises and think, oh fuck, oh shit, that's right. I'm like, what that time does, that 3 months, minimum 3 months, it gives, if anything's going to manifest itself, it will in that 3 months as a minimum. And you've got to do if you've returned from overseas service, you've got to, actually I say, if you've been on operation, because you can be deployed within your own country too.
Correct.
Which happened to me a couple of times. Once with the Vic bushfires, like Black Saturday bushfires. Yep. And then I had to jump on this is when I was living in Townsville, working out of the Laverick Barracks as a chop, because I was on what they call CFTS, continual full-time service. I was just on a 18-month contract, working the Psych department, flew to Darwin, jumped on a patrol boat that had come from HMS Cairns, but they'd met up with a patrol boat from Darwin and had to do some stuff up in the Bight there, and and so we had to do psych screening and all that sort of stuff with the lads and girls on the way back from Darwin back to Cairns, and that was probably one of the best times, because I'll tell you what, they like taking their time off and pulling into a nice cove somewhere and going for a swim and a fish and having a bit of a, oh look, we've got to do our BFA, so let's do the shoot out the back of the boat and the bloody towing a target along, and just, oh mate, that was fun. Firing at targets, bopping up and down the water. So, but stuff like that, so you can be deployed within your own country, and before you can get promotion or go on a course or whatever, you have to do a POPS, which is a post-operation psychology screen. And my role would be I'd be the point of call, and then I'd write a report along with the testing, and then hand that to the psych, and recommend if they need to talk with a psych or they don't. And then someone's cleared or not cleared to go on. So,
what do these kind of tests involve? So I've done a screening with Defence Force, like when I went in for cadets, we had to do a psych evaluation with an officer.
You've got K5s, K10s, audits, dudits. They're all like for alcohol, for drugs, and how you're feeling, and they are and they are not trick questions. And I say that they're not trick questions in the sense that they're trying to trip you up. They're trying to see if you're actually taking the time to read the question, because you might get the same question twice or even three times, but it's worded completely differently.
Exactly right. Yes, I did notice that.
And when you've conducted them, once you've done it a shitload of times like I have, and then written reports on them, you actually know not necessarily how to cheat, but how to shape your answers.
I suppose a lot of guys that have been in had, for a long period of time, had quite a bit of experience. It's probably commonplace.
Yeah, and you can generally, not every time, but generally you can pick up on that, because it's all about patterns. And it's because there's a pre-formula stencil that a lot that we use a lot, not all the time, but a lot, and you place the stencil over the answer sheet, and then it helps you pick up patterns that are good patterns or not so good patterns.
Gotcha.
It's an effective tool, and it's not 100% accurate like anything else is, mate. But yeah, it's certainly interesting.
Yeah, like that's one of the things, with this podcast. Another reason why I started it. Like I've had my own very hard days in the job that I do, and I know a lot of people that have in different industries, just trying to break that stigma. Sometimes you don't have to be exposed to one really traumatic event. It's sometimes just a series of little things mixed with the shift work, mixed with the sleep deprivation, the stuff going at home that cause a problem. A lot of people that work these jobs, the amygdala in our brain, which is, the small part of our brain, it's the prehistoric part of our brain. When that's constantly, at a state of stress, that can affect us quite a bit. And if that stays in that state, it's 100% bad for our health.
Yeah. That reptilian part of the brain which is, reptilian brain or caveman, it's that instinctive part of your brain, which is good and bad because it helps to keep you alive, and it can also fuck you up big time. And that's a technical term too, by the way, fuck you up.
100%.
Because, you can go, you go into the fight, flight or freeze mode. Yeah, it's quite, it's dangerous.
It is, especially when it's been at that state constantly for a long time, because the amygdala is responsible for issuing an emotional response to a situation. Like caveman days, you see that saber-toothed tiger, that's what fires your amygdala. It produces fear, sends it to your hypothalamus. You get that adrenaline dump, and that's when you go for that fight, flight, or freeze. So it's very, very interesting the way that works.
And I suppose that learning all that and working with current and ex-serving Defence Force members, it's learning all that is also helped me through my own flight, fight or freeze mode, because Father's Day 2017, whilst I was on duty in the fire service, I was on duty at the fire station, and I had a nervous breakdown. I don't know what triggered it, still don't know what triggered it. A week after my breakdown, I had the tree picked out I was going to drive my car in. I really did. Obviously, I haven't actioned on that, never did. But I self-medicated with cannabis and alcohol. The cannabis and it was good stuff too, not the bloody medical oil that had all the good bits in it too. And the irony in that, because I now work in the AOD sector and mental health sector for my physical injuries, because I've copped my injuries, in the Defence Force and fire service, and my spinal injuries, and I was taking the smoking the chuff for the physical pain, because I can't take, my body doesn't accept the really heavy duty painkillers like endone. So there's no risk of me ever getting addicted to painkillers.
All the opioids.
Yeah, I can't, because my body rejects them. It makes me feel like I've got a 20-year hangover, and I just, mate, it's the worst feeling ever for me. And then the alcohol to numb the pain between the ears and in the heart, So I did that for, I reckon, 12 months. I don't know what happened, and I really don't. I can't put a finger on it. I wouldn't say I had an epiphany or anything like that, but it was because I think it's just the good support I had around me, like family and friends. And I started going out and doing some self-improvement stuff and reading and courses, and that led me. And look, I've been, since 2018, I've been either or both uni or TAFE studying, and so I've got pardon me, a double diploma in mental health AOD. I'm doing a grad diploma at the moment in mental health to add to the diploma. Next year I'm doing a grad cert in things like family violence, sexual assault, case management, and all that. So I've studied NLP. I don't know if heard of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming.
Yep.
I'm a practitioner on that, and I'm also now a profiler.
Wow.
With NLP.
Wow.
So after
extensive resume there.
Yeah. So after talking to people, I'll ask baseline questions. So it's basically so then when I ask them questions, or telling a story, or just chatting, basically asking those baseline questions, because it'll be the same to everyone. So that, because everyone's different. I'll have, it's not an exact science. It can be a very accurate one, but not 100%. I'll basically know if you're bullshitting, in layman's terms. I'll know if someone's using the creative side of their brain, which is, creative, which is you're making up something, creating something, or you're using the recall side of your brain, which is memory.
There you go. I think I do remember us having a brief chat about this, because we were on a deployment together on Operation MacTier, and I remember us going out to dinner, and I think we had a brief chat about this.
We did actually, and one of your first questions is, "Oh, you're psychoanalyzing me, are you?" And I said, "Mate, I had
pretty done and dusted, eh?"
Mate, I said, had that nearly a week. I did that nearly a week ago, mate.
The advantages, I suppose. The advantages.
Oh, look, I don't do that to people. I've been doing it long enough to know that I trust my instinct a lot. And I think we have to, especially in Defence Force and emergency services, I think we have to learn, if we don't already, we need to learn to trust ourselves and our gut feelings a lot more, because once again, it keeps us alive, and it helps us make the right, or not necessarily the right decision, but the correct decision, because whether you make bad choices and being presented in a situation, and you've got to make split-second decisions.
How have you found the transition going from, fireys and defence into this role? Have you found it very rewarding?
Yes, I have. I get stale in any one role for any length of time. And it's not because I don't enjoy the work. It's because I thought, well, I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm not developing as a person. as a human being. I've got myself to a point where I need to learn more. I need to keep moving forward. And that's all part of my own self-management of my own mental health. Because you said something before, it's, having breakdowns and PTSD, anxiety, depression, which is what happened to me, and I got pensioned off, medically discharged with PTSD, anxiety, depression. And a lot of that is also what they call vicarious trauma. When you take on other people's problems, like with social media and the news and everything. I mean, it's a wonder. Let me reframe that. It's no wonder our young people, people of our communities, are slowly getting fucked in the head at such a young age because, mate, what they're exposed to, and it's we shouldn't have to wrap people up, people up in cotton wool and protect them from everything. But at the same time, I think we need to really be cognizant of what's happening around us. Let kids be kids, and whatever. But I mean, that's just my personal opinion. And everyone's going to have a different one. But I think, it's just really, I don't know, we're in a precarious time. Like, what's happening at the moment? You've got that war, the war and fighting that's been happening for over thousands of years.
Yep.
And, they're both parties have got credible argument to who owns it, because at some stage in the last 2,000 years, they've both owned it at various different stages. Oh, but we owned it then, no, Christ, hey, let's split it down the friggin' middle, eh? What do you reckon? Yeah, it's just, yeah. And that's been happening all over the globe, not just in the Middle East.
Exactly right. I recently did a course. So have you read The Resilience Shield by Ben Pronk, and Tim Curtis?
No, I have not.
Highly recommend it. And I've gone on and done so they're SAS. Dan Pronk's a SAS doctor. Then we've got Ben Pronk, who was the commander of the SAS, and Tim Curtis was also an officer in the SAS. And they've used real world experiences to create this thing called the Resilience Shield. And it's broken up into 6 different layers. So you've got your innate layer, which is what you're born with in nature and nurture. You've got your mind layer, you've got your body layer, your professional layer, your social layer, and your adaptation layer. And what I really like about the book is it's most mental health stuff that you get, I mean, it's changing now, but a lot of it's reactive. This is what happens when this happens. But the book is very proactive. It talks about building your resilience layers and different itemized things within those layers, and what you can do to bolster everything is really, really good. So I've actually applied to do their resilience mentor course, and it's an EOI, and I happen to get in. So I'm going in December down to Perth to do that with them. He was just up in Darwin a couple of days ago and did a talk for October Business Month. So
who are you doing that with?
So the Resilience Shield with those 3 ex-SAS guys. And they've worked with psychologists to create it, and they worked with I think it was the University of Western Australia as well. But yeah, I highly recommend anyone listening to this to really to get that book, and it'll help. It talks about things like gratitude, and it talks about things like we talk about a little bit on meditation, even things like the ikigai, and trying to get that state of ikigai, which is what you're good at, what the world needs, what you paid to do, and I forget the other one off the top of my head, and it's that point. And it also talks about the saying called a Japanese saying. It's let me get the thing. I think it's called sabi wabi or wabi sabi. I can't remember off the top of my head here. Let me have a look. Where are we? Wabi sabi, which is finding beauty in imperfection.
Yes.
And just using these little techniques, man, and combat breathing. And they also talk about when you have an emotional reaction to something, between the stimulus and the response, there's a space.
Yep.
And within that space is your power to decide how you're going to react, and bringing in these interventions like combat breathing, which is just basically box breathing. But as Dan says, you put combat in front of anything for SAS guys, they're all over it, because this is actually taught to the SAS.
Exactly right.
And
Yeah.
they also worked out that when you have an emotional reaction to something, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, whether you're sad or anxious, that chemical reaction within your brain only lasts 90 seconds. That's it.
Yeah. Look,
anything beyond that is a choice.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Now, I'm not comparing grapes with watermelons, but part of the training that I did through RMC was, we did like full-on sleep depth, and part of that is we were, how shall I say, in inverted commas, captured, for the scenario, bag over their head, and treated like prisoners, whilst we're in this state of deprivation. And but prior to the exercise, we had the briefing, and they mentioned things like your box breathing. It's not going to last forever. Try and just say, well, we're not here to kill you. We're here to give you an experience.
That's right.
So do your breathing. You're not going to die. The fear, your initial reaction is going to last for about a minute and a half, or a couple of minutes at most, and you just got to see it through.
Yep.
And it's the same technique. One of the things I've done with study, I've also done a course on the hot cold, ice bath bathing and all that sort of stuff. And it's exactly the same method.
Yep.
You do box breathing, and you'll find that not even a minute later, 30, 40 seconds later, you're thinking, and look, it can be a testament to an individual's mental strength. And, I'm not talking about me, I'm, talking about everyone else, not me. I know my threshold at the moment, and I say at the moment because it could be, depending on the situation, could be different, and what the driving force is, what do you want to get out of it, why are you doing what you're doing, and then, like that reptilian part of your brain kicks in and, survival mode. So.
Yeah, what really surprised me within the book and the talk that Dan did that I was just at is meditation. Like, I've always been the one, meditation, probably not for me, but I've actually started incorporating it every day. Just 10 minutes. That's it, 10 minutes. The science has proven those that meditate over a long period of time, the amygdala in the brain actually shrinks. So the amygdala shrinks, and also the pathways, the neural pathways through the brain increase, and they also get thicker. Really interesting. So there's a lot of benefits to that it blew my mind.
Yeah, and look, I haven't heard any of those facts. I know it makes a difference because that was one of the things I started doing a few years ago. I got into it, through my own personal recovery, and I meditate, God knows how many times a day. Even if, like, when I'm at work, I'll be sitting at my computer at work, my workstation. I do a lot of outreach, so I'll do it sitting at the desk. I'll put my headphones, not these ones, like the iPhone ones you plug into you plug into your laptop or desktop or whatever. The ones where they're like noise cancelling ones. I've got some Bluetooth, which is the ones I use when I go to the gym. But I put them on. I whack them on because I wear them to and from the car. I park the car about 1K away from work and then walk into work and so forth. But I put them on and I'll just do like 60 seconds, 30 seconds of mindful breathing. Just, close my eyes and imagine I am the breath. I am my own breath, and I follow it down in through my lungs and out again. I do that a couple of times. Bang! It's like, okay, keep going. Or, I'll sit down on a nice day. I'll sit out under the shade of a tree or something and sit on the grass, take my shoes and socks off, and I'll fucking just walk and just have my headphones in and just be listening. And I'll come home and I'll lie on the ground with my dog, my support dog, and she snuggles into me, and and I'm holding, and then I find that her breathing changes as mine changes, and we're almost, almost in sync. And I'll listen for that first noise that I hear outside, and then I will identify that roughly where it is, what it is. Whilst listening to that, I'll try and pick up a second noise. So I just concentrate on two noises, and I find a third, and then some days I can get about 4 or 5 different noises in my head and hear each one of those five noises and nothing else. The rest of it's white noise, and I just block it out. Some days I can only get to about 2 or 3. It depends how I am. So I'll meditate like that. If I'm feeling a bit under the weather or something like that, I'll lie on the couch and lie on the bed and put my headphones in and listen to. I've got 3 now. I did have 4. I've got 3 apps on my phone, all different meditation type apps. Some go for 5 minutes, 2 minutes. Some I listen to for half an hour. And if I'm going to listen to the longer ones, I actually, some of them sometimes, not the same ones, but sometimes some of them might put me to sleep because I'm in that state. And if I'm feeling a bit like that, before I listen to it, I'll set an alarm. Let's say the recording goes for 12 minutes, I'll set an alarm for 15 minutes.
Yep.
So if I fall asleep, I get this nice gentle, So yeah, I meditate all the time. And I go to bed, I go to sleep, go to bed at night with the app going.
Yep.
And I can't remember the last time. I actually can't remember the ending of it.
Yep. Sleep before it. It just puts you in that relaxed, calm state.
Yeah.
I think it's very underrated. Like I said, it's only something that I've just started incorporating over the last 3 or 4 days. But yeah, I did it last night before I went to bed, and it's such a good thing.
Yeah, but I think what has prevented, myself and others, it still prevents others, but for a long time, I had too much masculinity about alternative measures. And I say alternative measures, whether it's natural, herbal, medical, whatever. Like these different approaches to mental health and just general well-being. Oh, no, that's a lot of shit, mate. Oh no, I'll just go and I'll do this and I'll do that, and it's like some people meditating. A form of meditation could be going out to a workshop, like in the man shed, man shed sort of thing, and man cave, and tinker away on a motorbike or woodwork or whatever hobby you might have, painting or whatever, mate.
I call that a flow state.
Yeah.
Getting into the flow state. Yeah.
Sometimes I just like pure escapism. I'll turn and watch bloody one of the Marvel movies for the fucking 50th time or something. I'm not saying necessary, but you know what I mean? Just pure escapism. And, it takes your mind off it. And that's, at the end of the day, I mean, if you get that, get your mind off it and find tools to help you cope, and eventually we can learn our triggers and what triggers us. And if we can do that well, we can learn to stay away or be more mentally prepared for things.
Yeah, exactly. For me, my flow state activity is I go metal detecting because it doesn't, like, I'm good at it. It doesn't require a lot of thought. I research where I go, so I'm generally in different areas. I'm outside. I'm on the beach. I've got the headphones on. I'm swinging the metal detector and I'm listening for little sounds. You know what I mean? You get that little sound. Oh, and the thing for me is like, you can find a few coins, you can find a few dollars. I like finding old things, and I really like returning things to owners that have been lost. Like I've returned some World War II dog tags. I've returned rings. I had a phone call from a lady, and one of my best things that I found actually is the World War II dog tag, which I returned to the owner's son, who's in Adelaide. He was in the 2nd Air Observation Unit when it was posted to Darwin for World War II. And the other thing I found is I got a call from a lady saying I've lost, I can't remember, it was a little bracelet or a chain. And she goes, she'd lost it 2 or 3 days earlier, and she was walking on a concrete path that had a little bit of grass at either side. I was like, I was thinking there was no chance. Anyway, I went out and I was detecting, and I ended up finding it. I ended up seeing it before my metal detector found it, and it was in a place that a lot of people walk. So I'd found it and I'd given her, she'd come up, she hugged me, she immediately started crying. And I thought, oh, cool, I found it, she's happy a bit, it's a gold chain, big deal. Like you lose a little gold chain, a little bit of money, whatever. But it ended up to contain the ashes of her stillborn child.
Holy fuck.
That have had,
Sorry, I didn't mean to say that on your podcast, mate. Sorry.
No, you're all good. You're all good. And yeah, that's pretty much was my reaction. And when she told me what it was, I was like, wow. You know what I mean? I had the opportunity to do that.
Money can't buy shit like that, mate. Like
No.
when you help someone out like that, mate, you can stick all the money in the world up your ass because, I mean, that's why we do what we do. I mean, it's to help others, isn't it?
Well, that's it. Whether it's Defence Force, whether it's metal detecting, whether it's the Army, or the ambulance service, in the end, we're all there to help people.
DRA, yep.
Yep, Disaster Relief Australia, exactly right. And we'll chat a little bit about that. So yeah, it's you can always find good in what you're doing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you can't, well, you're not looking too hard.
Exactly. I've adopted this practice with my kids and my wife, and it's something that I learned through the book and through Dan, and it's the rose, bud, and thorn technique. So when we sit down for dinner, and it's literally we go around the table. All right. So the rose represents something good that happened today, or something that you would appreciate. The bud is something. What are you looking forward to tomorrow or within the next few days? And the thorn is tell me something today that was difficult. And a lot of times from the kids I'll get, my little daughter's, this person didn't want to play with me and I wanted to play with them and that was hard, but but then I wanted to play with someone else and then, the person that she originally wanted to play with ended up coming over anyway. Or we did this maths question and that was really hard, but in the end I got it or I didn't get it. You know what I mean? It's a good opportunity for them to express what happened.
Yeah, and look, and that's one of the things. A very, very similar method is something I've been using for. Like I learned this when I was still in the army, and I've used it in the fire service. I've used it in DRA, and I've used it in the various roles that I've had in the last few years. Is having after you've seen something, talked about it, or you've had a lesson, or you've read a book, or your day, a very similar method. What have you learnt today? What was your favourite part of the day, and what would you do differently? And so it's very similar. Never, what did you do? What did you fail at, or what did you do wrong? More so, and it's all about framing because what would you do differently? Well, if someone wants to come say, well, I made a mistake, so I've turned mistakes into lessons.
That's right.
And another one is, another mantra I have is, I don't have problems, I have challenges.
Exactly, and it's reframing your mind and the way you think can have a big impact, a massive impact. And the way you were describing just before very much reminded me of an AAR, an after action report. So you're basically doing an AAR for your day.
Yeah.
At the end of the day is what you're teaching them.
And I think that, that's what I love about what I do now. I've got lived experience, with trauma, mental and physical, and and addiction issues. And I think that the best part is, my dream is to be able to help veterans of the emergency service and Defence Force. I mean, that's my dream goal. And at the moment I'm working with youth, so I'm actually the Aboriginal youth AOD and mental health worker for Headspace. And I know there's I've been in contact with, for whatever reason that I've had contact with Headspace in Darwin.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, they're a nice mob there, and but ultimately, working with you is great because hopefully, because they are our future. Hopefully, I can be part of a process that helps them not get to the stages that us adults. Well, I won't say grown up. I'm an adult, but I'm not grown up. Yep. I refuse to grow up, mate. Growing old is mandatory. Growing up is optional.
Exactly.
So but ultimately, that's I just want to give back to the 2 lifetimes I've had in service. You know, it's there's a lot of boys and girls out in the services that find it tough, mate.
Exactly, and I really want to reach out. If any of you guys are listening and you are going through some problems, just really, really reach out. We really need to be proactive about our mental health, and it's not weak to speak. There's employee assistance programs that you can reach out to. Reach out to your family, your friends if you're uncomfortable contacting a mental health professional yourself. Speak to a family, a friend, or a worker, and they can help you through these. Yeah,
and just on that, Rusty, I think I'd like to acknowledge all the listeners out there for their courage and acknowledging them for their courage, because the toughest thing you'll ever do is the first time you put your hand up. It really is. But you're not alone. I hear you and I see you. So, and there's thousands and more people out there like myself who will be there for you. So whether it's me or Rusty, or like Rusty said, another health professional. And look, I'm happy for you, Rusty, to put any links in this. If they they want to have a yarn to a complete stranger that's got that life experience, that lived experience of whatever issue they may have, because that was one thing. It's really hard to talk to a peer, I found.
Yep.
Not so much for me now, but initially I wanted to talk to strangers because I didn't want. I laugh at the irony of it. Is that I'm preaching what I wouldn't practice myself in the early days. I'd reach out to someone I didn't know, and I hope they would have the knowledge and experience to help me, because that was the hardest thing, just reaching out to a peer. It's really hard, really, really hard. I mean, I know I couldn't do it initially, but now I'm not scared. I don't feel embarrassed whatsoever. I tell my story to anyone who wants to listen. And I mean, I won't necessarily get descriptive, like I haven't, discussed in this podcast even a lot of the stuff that I've seen and I've done, as I'm sure, there's people out there have done and seen probably worse things than me. But I don't think, I don't think we can put a gauge on it, because what I might see, I thought, that's been part of my everyday life, but someone else it could be horrific. And what's and what someone else sees as a perfect normal day, and no, that's all right. I could look at it and say, oh no, that's horrific. You know what I mean? So we're all different. There's no, I've seen worse things than you, or I've done worse things than you. I mean, everyone is an individual, and we all interpret things differently. And that's 100%. What makes us individuals. So
exactly.
Yeah, no, you're not on your own.
Yep. And what I'd like to put out there for the people is, in regards to psychologists, we really need to reframe the way we think of them. Think of it as if, this is something I learned in the course with Dan as well. When you own a car, you don't want your car to break down. So what do? You make sure you take that car and get it serviced and get regularly serviced. And at times it will still break down. It happens. That's life. We need to think about psychologists as mechanics for our mind. We need to be proactive. We need to be going seeing them, even if it's checking once or twice a year, just to check it. Nothing has to be wrong, but make sure we get our mind serviced. And that's what you need to reframe as, the mechanics for the mind. If we can service it and keep it maintained, it's going to break down less often.
Good analogy. I've heard that a few times. And that also comes down to you getting your mind serviced, but also, it also depends on the quality of fuel you put into that car.
Exactly right.
And the quality of the fuel that you can control. And
that's right.
We can, like there's a plethora of sayings about control. Like, we can only control what we control. We can't control a situation, but we can control how we react to it, or we can only control the controllables. It means the same thing. And that can be a hard lesson to learn, and a long lesson too. Some people don't learn that one straight away. I know I didn't. I had to reach, I was 1 millimetre from rock bottom, and before I realised a lot of that. So, no, it's a good podcast, good service you provide here, Rusty. Look, I'm really, really glad that you do it, because it's a conduit where people can listen to and say, hey, and look, even if they don't get the courage up to contact you or me or anyone else immediately, it's food for thought, and just to let people know that they're not on their own.
Yeah, exactly right. And I hope people do take it on board, and just starting that conversation with people that may not have considered starting it before. And I really want to do it because, like, I listened to a fair few podcasts, the Unforgiven 60 with Dan Pronk and Ben and Tim, and another big one that I listen to is Life on the Line. Life on the Line does something similar to this and tells stories.
Yeah, I've listened to that one.
Yeah, but they're very focused on just defence people, whereas I want it open to all emergency services, even, things like, I want to really get a prison officer on, a corrections officer. I've had aviation rescue firefighter, and I've had, you're a firefighter, and we'll chat a little bit about your firefighting stuff shortly.
Pardon me.
Paramedics, intensive care paramedics, police officers. I really want to encompass everyone. I think this is episode 12. We're getting there.
Awesome, man.
Can we talk about your most memorable moments within your services, both in the Army and with the firefighters?
I've got some horrible memories.
We can focus on the good ones.
No. I'm just you asked me a question, I'll answer it. That I won't go into details, but there's some pretty horrible things that I've seen, and there one that I went to an accident, a motor vehicle accident, and I was part of the rescue crew, and it was a middle-aged woman, deceased, and it just reminded me, because I lost my own mother at around about at the same age of this woman, and in an accident, and I lost my mum in hit and run, and it wasn't that long after. It was about 6 months, 8 months after Mum had passed, and it was 18 months. That's right, 88, 89. Yeah, it was in early 90 when I went to this accident, and it just reminded me, and that's one of those things that was ingrained in me. And as it turned out, without going into detail, of course, it was evidently not too far. The accident was not too far from where this deceased person had lived, because before we knew it, there was this woman running down the street screaming, "Mum, mum, mum." And that just, I fucking lost my shit once I got back to the fire station. There's that, and there's a few things like that just, attending a crime scene, because like we're medically trained as well as medical first responders as well, and attending a crime scene. Well, we found out that it was a crime scene, not initially, and it was a person I used to play football with, because I just happened to be working where I grew up, used to live for many years, and then in the Army, like a couple of times going overseas and seeing little things like seeing a child's shoe in burnt out wreckage, they'd obviously been, ripped apart by fire and bombs or IEDs or something, and then just it was more so not the actual blood and guts or gore or whatever you want to call it. It was the insinuation of what has happened, where your mind needs a little bit more to think about shit, what's happened here, and then your mind goes into all sort of, seeing someone, and like, once again, I'm not comparing grapes with watermelons, and no disrespect to those serving with those who have been killed in action or anything like that. It's because I've lost mates, in service. It's just it's a horrible thing to see someone and you care about dead. So they're the sorts of things that really stick in, and nothing can beat. There was one time in the fire service, I was just doing nothing. I was in the officer's office, adjacent to the engine bay or engine room, where the trucks sit, and I was looking out the window, and we were just the fire station I was at the time. There's a hospital not too far from there on the same road, and the ambos used to always call in for a cuppa. Like, hey, how's it going? Sit down, have a brew. So the cops had always come in. Only one day the ambos have driven in, and they've parked to the side in the rear yard. Normally they'll hop out and they'll walk across the yard. And after a bit, I thought, oh yeah, they've come for a cuppa. Beauty. I'll finish up doing what I'm doing, and I look up. I still hadn't walked out. I'm like, 15. It felt like 15 minutes, probably 5 or 10 minutes. I've walked across and say, hey, just to say g'day, and the pair of them are in the back. Mind you, they're only like a kilometre away from the bloody hospital, assisting this woman giving birth to a baby. And so they said, hold this. They just threw the drip at me, and fucking I had to hold it up, and all of a sudden, I was that gobsmacked. My first thought was this poor woman thinking, who's this fucking prick?
Who's this other guy coming in?
Having a look at it all, having a look at all my business and everything, and but I didn't even think about that until afterwards, and in some shape, form, or size, assisting in a complete stranger's birth. It's just, it was just fucked. There was one day as a recruit. I'm not a recruit. I'd finished recruits and I was out at the fire station. And we got this call for a dog on the top of a roof of a bloody shopping centre. So we get down there, because it was an undulating area, so it was all like split level sort of thing. And this dog had jumped over a small fence, but because it was like undulating and there's a cutting for the delivery bay, there was like an awning over the delivery bay, which was almost not underground, but it was at a lower level. It had just jumped onto the roof. So the only way we could get to this dog was by going down into the delivery bay and putting a ladder up to this roofing. And it was a Doberman. So all these, who are you going to send up? All these blokes, I'm not going up the bloody Doberman. No. We'll send the newbie up. We'll send the probie up, we'll send the probie up, So I've gone up and I'm fucking shit myself. But then again, I'm only shitting myself because everyone's watching, including the fucking local newspaper. Great fucking story. And I go up and this fucking poor dog was shit scared. It came over to me, started licking me, and fucking wasn't scared at all. So I've, tied him up appropriately, to say, to lower him down. Then he wouldn't let go. So I climbed down the fucking ladder with this Doberman under one arm.
Oh, Jesus.
And then a week and a half later, the local paper comes out, and here I am plastered all over the fucking paper. And
that's brilliant.
And the funny thing was, because people don't know the correct terminology, not everyone knows the correct terminology or rank structure and titles and all that sort of stuff. It was funny because I'd only been in the job, like less than 12 months. And it said, fire officer Ross Lewis from the Central Fire Brigade. I'm thinking, and I've said to all the lads, hey, fucking officer boy, hey.
Exactly. Did you ask them for your new epaulets?
No, but they made me some. Fucking pricks. Like got a fucking some base, like just the epaulets with nothing on them.
Yep.
And they'd got a bloody a sticker of one for each fucking epaulet. One of the picture of a dog. Anyway, let's say just a dog. And on each shoulder, and they fucking presented to me at muster. Fucking pricks. I mean, it was a good gag, but it was, stuff like that. And there's plenty of good moments. And when you rescue, help rescue someone's pet or you help somebody and, actually getting a thank you, you don't do it because, hey, look, I want you to thank me for what I just did, mate. We all know it's like being in the service, in the Defence Force. We know theoretically what we're getting ourselves in for when we sign on the line, so to speak. And if we wanted thanks for everything we did, we'd be the laziest bunch of fucking people in the world. we don't do it deliberately, but it's nice to get thanks.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice to be appreciated, but which is all anyone ever wants anyway, no matter what you do in life. You just want to be appreciated by your family, by your friends, by your employer, or if you've got your own business, by your customers. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's what makes us tick. Is being appreciated.
That's exactly right. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
Just saying to someone thank you or I appreciate you, or it can have a massive impact on them.
But how typically Australian is it? Someone says, "Oh, thanks, mate." "Oh, no, it's all right, mate. No, it's all good. Yeah, it's part of the job." Well, what we've got to learn is to acknowledge someone's thanks. Because some people find it hard to express themselves, and they may find it hard to say thank you, or so we need to acknowledge them for that and say you're welcome. And it's not being egotistical. What you're doing is when you acknowledge someone who's thanking you for something, you're acknowledging them. You're not giving yourself a pat in the back. What you're doing is you're acknowledging them. So that's one of the things I've learned in the last half dozen or so years.
Yeah, and it's important, even if someone pays you a compliment. Oh, I really like your shirt. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and because you're acknowledging them as well for going out of their way.
Yeah.
For saying that.
And that's it's just a bit of respect.
Yeah, there was a study recently that I read about, and I can't remember who off the top of my head who's done it, and it talks about getting kids in a room and doing certain tasks, and the ones that did well saying, "Oh, you did really good, you're so good at this, awesome," and the ones that didn't do so well actually praising them and saying, "Hey, I know, I can see how much effort you put into that, I can see you've tried really hard." And over time, the people that got the encouragement-based feedback for acknowledging effort were doing better than the people that were told that they were good.
Yeah, because innately we strive to become better versions of ourselves, and I think we've forgotten that as a society. And overall, I'm not saying everyone has, but I think overall, and that's just that example you just gave is proof of that. If you great job, mate, the best I've ever seen. Well, fucking hell, I'm already the best, so I'm not going to strive for any more.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the difference too between men and women's mindset. Now, everyone's different, and I'm not saying every man, every woman, but as a majority, and we only need 51% for a majority, that if you want let's say if you're coaching a sport, and let's pick something like baseball, because both men and women play baseball. If you're coaching, and not necessarily a woman's side, but you've got women in your side, it's a mixed side, that say that the girls will perform better if they feel accepted as a person. Yet the guys believe that they have to perform before being accepted.
That's exactly right. Yeah, very good. I never thought of it that way, but I can 100% see how that works.
Yeah. So we've got to be mindful of that too. Because at the end of the day, like with your man or woman, you still want to be accepted. And I'd like to think we can get to a point in society where we accept people before as people and who they are before having them to feel that they need to prove themselves. No matter what it is, whether it's a workplace, sporting field, in the arts, literature, whatever, science, whatever. It just, accept a person for who they are, and then, hey, what do you do? Hey, what I can do, let me show you. But yeah, I'm the father of 3 daughters and a son. So yeah, I've got a little bit of a handle on that. Still learning.
And some experience.
Yeah, still learning.
Being a parent's the hardest job I've ever had, and it's just constant learning, constant growing yourself and developing as well.
Yeah, see, that word job, when you talk about parenting, I think if we could frame it, and that someone could come up with a different way of explaining it, that'd be great. But the difference between being a parent and parenting, I would say being a parent is a privilege.
100%.
That's it. That's simple as that. Parenting is a role, not a job.
Yeah, it's a good way to see it.
Mind you, it feels like a hard job at times.
It definitely does.
Oh,
It definitely
mate,
does.
wait until you like start getting older, mate. Jesus Christ, you got nothing yet.
Oh, my son's 11. He's getting there.
Oh, mate, no, he's 11. Easy, mate. Fucking easy. You know, yeah, and I just think it gets so hard, and especially you'll probably find it within the next couple of years, or for the next few years, moving forward, is that they really start to get their own individuality, and they've got to be free to be able to express that in a safe environment. You know, mate, I got there's no instruction booklet came with parenting. It comes with being a parent. It's one of those ones you just got to, fake it until you make it, I think, And just as long as you just, honesty, I think it's just a massive thing. But, I know my two oldest ones haven't, my son's certainly not fucking touchy-feely, tree-hugging, hippie sort of stuff, but he's very, he's got two daughters of his own and a lovely wife, and so he certainly knows how to be a good, parent, good husband. But you just want them to be individuals and, just try and do the right thing. And hopefully, all of my experiences and everything rub off in a good way, as opposed to, but see, the other thing is, and I think, the listeners out there too, like, if their parents or they're the child of their parent is, someone who's been in the services, emergency services or defence service, that our children, the children of emergency services and defence force and prison officers and all these other wonderful people who provide a great service you want to bring onto your show, that they are not our rehab. That it's a tough road for everyone, because if I suffer, my family suffers. Whether we, even if it's deliberate or subliminally, when we have people that actually care about us, they don't want to see us hurt physically or mentally. And quite often it's tougher with mental health, because they don't know how to help. Whereas, if you got physical health, go to the doctors or go to the physio or go to the chiro or get this changed or fixed or operated on or whatever. There seems to be a tangible alternative or solution to something. Whereas, the scars we can't see are probably the worst ones, because we don't know how to deal with them.
Exactly right. Is there any advice that you can give for people wanting to come into these roles, as a firefighter or go in the defence force or any of these emergency services roles, that you think that will help?
Look, it's a good question. It's a question that has been asked to me a few times, especially when I've run open days or things like that. Whether it be on a defence force base or whether it's at a fire station or training establishment, that you get people come in for work experience or, like I said, open days and so forth. Look, I don't think I've got a different answer every time, but it's. I think you ask me this now that I know what I'm like, who I am today, I would probably say that if it's what you want to do, give it everything you've got. Like, just don't hold back. Immerse yourself in it, because I think if you do yourself more harm than good if you think, it's something I wouldn't mind doing, wouldn't mind trying, or look into it. Look into the job description and talk to other people. Talk to people who have either in the job, whatever job it is you're interested in. There's chat groups, there's social media pages, there's and I'm sure somebody will know someone who's in the Army, Air Force, Navy, or fire, ammo, police or something, and or even just go down to a fire station, an ambulance station or police station or fire, whatever, and ask. Just go in. I mean, I know a lot of people can't do that. They feel a bit intimidated or a little bit, whatever, scared, and that's fine. But yeah, I'd research it as much as you can, and just immerse yourself in it. The best part of advice on top of that, I think, would be to understand best you can of what you're getting into, and try to have as much, have a really good EQ. I suppose I'd say that, try and have, really, be mentally and emotionally aware of your own mental health, because you will see and do things that most people don't. And I'm not trying to put anyone off. I think if people know what they're getting in for, every day will be different. I know some people in both jobs that have seen bugger all in their life. They haven't seen half the things I've seen. And that's circumstance. Depends on what shift you're on, and like with fires and accidents and rescues and all that sort of stuff, that's random shit. That's like really random shit. There's no timetable for that. And the same with any sort of armed conflict. That's random shit. Like I went through my 34 years and never saw any sort of conflict.
Luck of the draw.
Well, it is, and it's also your skill set. And I had a different skill set that was needed elsewhere. It is completely. It is. If you go in with the right frame of mind, to me it's been the most rewarding thing. The two things I've ever done.
And the friendships as well. There's good camaraderie in all these types of roles as well.
100%. But it's only as good as you make it.
Yep.
100%.
The last thing I want to chat about is, where we met on deployment in Victoria for Operation MacTear for flood recovery. I want to talk about your time and what DRA is to you. What we're all about.
Well, that MacTear wasn't my first deployment with DRA. My first through circumstance. I had an operational role. That was the reason I went up as the OPSO or operations officer for that role, for that particular wave of operation. But a circumstance would have it, I ended up taking over as the mission commander, and which was a new role for me with DRA, and I thought I absolutely loved it. I just think it was, it's just, it was a new role for me, and I like challenges, and I like being challenged. For me, not all the time, but most of the time when I'm challenged, I tend to excel because I put everything into it. But I was confident of doing the role, and it gave me the ability to get around and make sure everyone, and I mean everyone, was doing okay. That include the community, DRA personnel, and all the other stakeholders. And when you do that, it's also a chance to network. And I love networking, meeting new people, making new friends and services, because, look, if in the DRA role, if we can't help you, hey, maybe I know someone who can help you. Because at the end of the day, whether we're DRA, fire service, ambulance service, police, whatever, at the end of the day, we're helping the community, with flood relief. And that's the role, is to help the people of that community. It's not who provides that service. If we can't help you, hey, mate, let's find out together who can help you. And that was a really rewarding thing about that. I had been OPSO up in Townsville for the 2019 floods, and most of the time, because of my experience and injuries, limited to operation roles in terms of, within the management of a wave, because of my spinal injuries, I can't be on my feet all day, but I can't be sitting down all day. I've got to be mobile, but I can't work under a lot of load like I used to be able to. So, I can't operate bloody a chainsaw for too long, holding that at that height, and that, bending and twisting and all sorts of things under load. I can't. I just physically can't do it, and it's painful on my spine. So I'm limited to those more operational centre roles.
Yep. And how long have you been with DRA for?
Well, I was, let's say about 5 years now, when they were formerly TRA, Team Rubicon Australia. Yeah.
Yep. So quite a long. So I've done a fair few deployments with them.
I've been averaging, I suppose, up until, well, to the end of last year, it was probably 1.5 a year, but now, it's probably averaged out to about one a year, because there was a time there was about a 12-month period there where I didn't have any work. I was between jobs, and I just felt like a break from work, because I'm on a pension through the like a service pension. So I'm still allowed to go out and earn money as long as I don't earn over a certain amount. And I just felt like I needed a break. So yes, I did a lot. I did I think three operations in like an 18-month period.
Wow, that's a lot.
And more than one wave too. That was like about 5 waves all up.
A wave is about 10 days.
Yeah.
9 days a wave.
Well, yeah, it's about 9 or 10 from the time you leave to the time you get home, because if you're in the incident control, you go up a day before everyone else, and you sometimes leave the same day as others, but sometimes you might stay back for an extra day too. Just so you got that overlap at each end of it for handover, and yeah, depending on the times of flights, like you might have it just depends on flight availability and cost.
How did you find coming into, when it was Team Rubicon, now it's Disaster Relief Australia, going in with like-minded individuals, people that, been in the emergency services and have volunteered their time to come in together to help other communities?
Yeah, look, I found it, for me, that was a piece of piss. Hit the ground running. Because like you said, Rusty, it's that mindset that where people have got that similar, and I won't say the same experience, because every experience is different, but that similar experience and that mode of operation. And it's like the old thing in the army that, we're not here, when you go through Kapuka, or those uni students that go straight out of uni, straight to RMC, but, it's all set to not break you as an individual mentally. It's to break your habits and and we don't want to change what you think. We're changing what we all want you to. Where they're training us to think the same, in the same manner, but not differently, because we all interpret things differently. But if we all think with the same purpose and along the same framework, then we can have an operational situation. Let's say we've got the IMT, and there's say 6 or 8 of us. There can be 6 or 8 different options, because we're all looking at it differently. And if we can't find a solution with 8 people, we're struggling. And it's the same thing. Like we're all thinking the same way, but we're thinking differently of different things. And I find that's because of that and that training that we've all had. Once again, not the same training, but similar training. We're all thinking along the same lines, but we just might interpret something differently and come up with a different solution or a different way of doing things. So I found that it was piece of piss. It was really easy. I think the hardest deployment I ever went on with TRA at the time was my very first one. Not difficult because it was just difficult because I was going to work. It was like going to a new employer. I'd never worked with these people before, whether it's voluntary or paid, what I mean? So it was, a little different, that very first one. But, once you get to meet a few people and just as importantly or more importantly, they get to meet you and know how you operate and your work ethic, mate, it's just, after that, it's just hit the ground running.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No, mate, I'd just like to thank you for the, for the invite. And if, someone out there listening to this can, even if it just helps one person, mate, it'd be great if it helps more, but, even if it just gives one person the courage to do something for themselves, then it's been 100% worth it, mate. It's also worth catching up with you, mate.
Exactly. been
a
too long, man.
Well, it has been, but when we live in different parts of the world, different part of the country, so I think of all capital cities other than Tasmania, but of mainland Australia, I think Melbourne's probably the furthest one from you, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think because Perth would have to be closer.
Yeah, Perth is, I think, I'm going to Perth actually in December. I think that's like 3 hours and 50-minute flight, where I think like Melbourne's like 4.5.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I've only ever done the Darwin Melbourne one. Well, I say once or twice because it was a return journey, but yeah, one flight. I can't remember which way it was. 4.5 hours. The other one was nearly 5. One there was we had a tailwind, and the other one we had a headwind. So.
Yep. Ross, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your insights to your various careers. I think, it's a good opportunity for people to come on board and hear your story and learn a lot from it. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Rusty.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you for tuning into the Priority Zero podcast. We greatly appreciate your dedicated listenership. If you are interested in being featured as a guest on our show, we welcome you to reach out to us through our official channels on Facebook or Instagram. Alternatively, you can contact us via email at contact@priorityzero.com.au. We value your support in helping us spread these compelling stories to a wider audience. Kindly consider liking and sharing these episodes, as it plays a crucial role in our mission to reach as many people as possible.